Hello friends, here comes the part 3 of my presentation, and today I'll be discussing on CBI extension, which is Contingent Business Interruption Extension under BI policy. Policy clauses and other terms and conditions shall be discussed in the next part. What is contingent business interruption? Now, if you see, this extension covers business interruption loss arising out of physical damage to a property located outside the insured premises. And here lies the difference. In a normal BI cover, your material damage proviso says that the BI loss is payable only if the property located within the premises, at the premises, is damaged. But here it says located outside the insured's premises. This means the insured may recover production loss even though there is no material damage loss in his premises. Now there are 3 extensions which are available under CBI cover, Contingent Business Interruption cover, and they are: first one is your supplier's premises extension, second is customer's premises extension, and the third is failure of utility extensions. And as you see, there are 3 utilities, basically electricity, gas and water. Now we will discuss supplier's premises extension. And as you see, this extension covers loss of gross profit at insured premises due to interruption in production arising out of stoppage of supply of raw material because of an accident at supplier's premises which is caused by a peril covered under the material damage policy of the insured. So now let us understand it more clearly, that there has to be a loss at the supplier's premises, and because of that, if the supplies are interrupted and in that situation, if the insured suffers loss of gross profit, then it is covered under supplier's premises extension. But the important point is the peril which has caused loss or damage at the supplier's premises must be covered under the material damage policy of the insured. Now it is immaterial whether supplier has got any policy or not, whether that peril was covered in the supplier's policy or not. We are not concerned with that. Now let us understand by this example. If the material damage loss at the supplier's premises is caused due to floods, which has triggered production loss at insured's premises, then the loss of GP at insured's premises shall be payable only if flood peril is covered under insured's material damage policy. Now we are not concerned whether this flood is covered under supplier's policy or not, but we will see whether that peril is covered under insured material damage policy. Currently, as per JIC directives, it is permitted to extend only first year, that is direct supplier, and there is no coverage. No coverage can be given to second tier or third tier suppliers. Then for inland named first tier supplier, these are the limits: 20% of BI sum insured, and the coverage is restricted to Fluxa and AOG. For inland unnamed suppliers as well as for foreign named suppliers, limit is 10% and cover is restricted to 10% Fluxa only. For unnamed foreign suppliers, no cover can be granted. Now here is the diagram to understand this extension in a proper way. This is the insured premises and they are taking supplies from this supplier. So this supplier becomes a first tier supplier or the direct supplier, because insured is getting supplies directly from this gentleman. Now here is another supplier who is supplying some material to first supplier, and then it goes to insured premises. Now in case of any loss or damage here, the policy CBI extension does not cover any interruption of business here on account of loss or damage to premises to the machinery at second tier supplier. What is our contract? In case of any damage to the plant and machinery at this premises, and it should be by a peril which is already covered in insured policy, then only any production loss leading to loss of gross profit will get paid under supplier's premises extension. Next is your customer's premises extension. Let us see what it says. So this extension pays for the consequential loss suffered by the insured caused due to non-acceptance of supplies by the customer. It is different, totally opposite to supplier's premises. Now here, in case the customer refuses acceptance of supplies as a result of operation of insured peril at their premises, then the BI loss at the insured premises will get covered. So we will understand it further in the subsequent part of this slide, in another slide by way of diagram. So let us understand the terms and conditions. For inland named in the same way, only for first year customers. Here also there is no coverage for second tier customers. For inland named and first year customers, limit is 20%, coverage is Flexa plus AOG, and for inland unnamed customers and foreign named customers, limit is 10%, coverage restricted to Flexa cover only, and for unnamed foreign customers there is no cover. So in this diagram we can understand it better. Here is the insured who has taken BI policy with CBI extension, specifically customer's premises extension. Now in this case, in case there is a loss here at this premises, because this is your first year customer and here is your second tier customer. That means this customer is purchasing goods from insured and then they are assembling or refabricating or whatever they are doing, then they are supplying to another customer, second customer. So now in this policy of the insured, what we cover, in case of any loss or damage to first year customer premises, here in this premises, on account of a peril which is covered here in insured's material damage policy, and because of this loss, if the customer stops acceptance of supplies from the insured, in that case, because of interruption in production process due to non-acceptance of supplies by the customer, will get paid under the CBI extension of this policy, insured's policy. So now we discuss failure of utility supply extension. The first one is failure of electricity supply. This covers loss of BI resulting from interruption of business at insured premises due to a failure of electricity supply at the terminal ends of the electricity supply feeders, that is substation, provided the failure is caused due to a damage of property of substation by the operation of an insured peril. So what does it mean? If there is an interruption of power supply, then the loss of BI is covered at the insured premises. Now we see coverage is restricted only up to the last leg of power supply. We will understand this in the subsequent slide. Maximum indemnity is limited to 60 days, which corresponds to 17% of BI sum insured. Then this is the last thing. Loss under this extension shall be payable only if the interruption exceeds 24 hours. That means 24 hours is the waiting period under this extension. Now let us see the diagrammatic view. Here is the insured premises, and this insured is drawing power supply from substation. These are the transmission line. And this substation is getting power supply from power generation plant, thermal power or gas power, whatever it can be. Here again there are transmission lines. So now you see power is generated here, it is transmitted to the insured through this substation. So what is the coverage under extension in case there is a loss or damage at the premises of substation due to a peril not excluded under the material damage policy of the insured, and because of that the supply is not available to the insured premises, then any loss or loss of BI, that is loss of gross profit, due to interruption in production process because of non-availability of electricity supply, that gets covered under this extension. Now we need to understand one more important point, that we are covering last leg of power supply. That means whatever electricity supply insured is getting from the nearest substation, if there is a loss at the nearest substation, last leg of power supply, then only it gets covered. But if something happens at the power generation plant, then this loss will not be covered because it becomes as good as second tier supplier. Another point which is quite often asked is, what about these transmission lines? This any damage to the substation premises is covered, that we have already understood. But what about these transmission line? Because any breakdown or damage to these transmission line will also result interruption in power supply. But so answer to this question is there in this slide. What it says: due to the failure of electricity supply at the terminal ends of the electric supply feeders or the substation. That means if there is a failure of electricity supply at the terminal end of a substation is this, and if there is no electricity here, then only the loss is paid. So that indirectly or directly, it means any loss or damage to the transmission line will not be covered under this extension. Then second extension is your failure of gas supply. It says the same thing. The only thing is, instead of electricity, we use the word gas supply. So it says this extension covers loss of gross profit or BI resulting from interruption of business carried out by insured at the insured premises, arising out of failure of gas supply. Instead of electricity supply, now we say gas supply. At the terminal end, again terminal end word is used, of the gas supply undertaking or the compressor station, from where the insured is receiving the gas. Due to what? Due to the damage of property at the compressor station caused by operation of insured peril. Again, in this extension, the maximum indemnity period is limited to 60 days. That is 17% of total BI value. And again, there is a waiting period of 24 hours. Now let us understand further. So here is the gas supply station from where the gas is coming, and it is coming to the compressor station, and from this compressor station through pipelines, insured is getting the gas supply. Now there are two things which needs clarification, like in case of failure of electricity extension, that first of all, the nearby compressor station has to get damaged. There has to be a loss, insured loss at this premises. Then only the loss of GP is covered here. Secondly, there is this, any damage to this gas pipeline is not covered under this extension. That means any damage to gas pipeline resulting into shortage of or interruption in gas supply causing loss of GP at insured premises will not be covered under this extension. Third is failure of water supply. Here also we cover loss of business interruption from interruption of business carried on by the insured at the premises due to failure of water supply at the terminal end of said premises, directly due to the damage of property at water supply undertaking or pumping station from where the insured is obtaining water supply. Here also the maximum indemnity period is limited to 60 days, that is 17%, and waiting period is 24 hours. Now here also you see this is the insured premises and it is getting water supply from nearest pumping station. It is here, and here are the water pipelines. This is the last leg of water pipeline. So there has to be a damage at the pumping station, and then only interruption in production because of non-supply of water, that gets covered under this extension. So loss of GP at insured premises because of non-supply of water gets covered.